Blessings and peace to you. This is SB Favor Thinking Podcast, and my name is SB Favor. How are you doing today? It is Wednesday, February 28, 2024. Another wonderful day and another day to be thankful. Yes. And as I always say, if you focus on what is good, then you can project something good to happen when you focus on what is good. Because if you are sitting around focused on all the negative things that could bring you down, that's not a good thing. No, it's not good. So focus on what is good. If you are out there traveling about today, make sure you are focused. Make sure you are prayerful and safe and not distracted by being on your phone too much in the public. That's right. When you are on your phone too much in the public, that is a distraction. So pay attention to what's going on in your environment and make sure you use your hand sanitizer and keep yourself safe and your family members safe. That's right. I always remind you of these things because I care. If you would like to give to the podcast, you can give at Cash App, $SB Favor, or you can give at Venmo at SB Favor. Once again, if you would like to give to the podcast, you can give at Cash App, $SB Favor, or you can give at Venmo at SB Favor. Thank you so much for your support and your donations. Well, I do have an inspirational quote for you today. My inspirational quote is, leave the past behind and don't look back. Your focus on your present and future is more beneficial. Don't let the past trigger you. I am going to read that inspirational quote again. Leave the past behind and don't look back. Your focus on your present and future is more beneficial. Don't let the past trigger you. Wow. That inspirational quote is saying a whole lot. Why? Because many of us have triggers. Many of us are reminded of our past by something we see, something we hear, sometimes something someone may say. And unfortunately, a trigger is not a good thing. If it causes you to feel bad, if it causes you to experience something in your thoughts or in your feelings that's not good, it's just not a good thing. All of us have gone through hurts, painful experiences. We have gone through different things in relationships. We have gone through all kinds of things in our life that have been some type of discomfort. There are levels of pain, but many of us have experienced some type of emotional hardship. Yes, we have. Let's be real about this. And a trigger is not a good thing. There are 3 types of triggers. And when I wrote this inspirational quote, this is what came to my mind. And of course, I am going to share with you why I wrote this inspirational quote. But number 1, the first trigger is a mental trigger. A mental trigger is bombarded thoughts, a bunch of thoughts that may come to you at one time that remind you of your past, or it might not be a bunch of thoughts. It could be just one or two thoughts. But a mental trigger is they are thoughts that come to you, or just something you are thinking about. Number two, an emotional trigger is a feeling of something you experienced in your past through the emotional trauma or hardship. Three, an environmental trigger is something in an environment, a place, a thing. Yeah, triggers. It's a real thing. And unfortunately, when you are triggered, you must be honest about it. You must acknowledge it for what it is. You must understand and focus on the importance of staying on the path of your healing journey. Because if you allow yourself to be triggered without learning from what is happening in the moment, then you will be triggered again, and then you won't know what to do, especially if it escalates to a place of sorrow or something you don't want to experience. Some people are triggered and they become very angry. And when they become angry, if you don't recognize what is happening in the moment to control it, then you will just keep going through the same thing over and over again. So the question is, what should you do when you are triggered? First and foremost, I believe you should pray, and you should be very, very honest with yourself to understand what triggers you. And once you recognize what has triggered you, then acknowledge it for what it is. Learn from the moment to understand what your triggers are. Because when you learn from the moment to understand what your triggers are, then you can stay on the path of healing. And if that feeling or thought or that environmental trigger comes to you again, you will recognize it. It's a process. It's a process of healing. We all are in a process of healing from different things on different levels. Now, I'm talking about this because this is personal, and I have the right to share my experiences. I have the right to share my opinion to those that want to listen. I am not a psychiatrist. Although many people always say, have you taken psychology courses and are you a counselor? I have a background of study when it comes to human and social behaviors and social sciences. Yes, I do have a background in that when it comes to my studies and college education. But I'm saying all that to say this. This is personal because recently I was triggered by something. I was having a good day, going about my business, and then all of a sudden I got a text from someone in my past. And when I looked at the text, of course, I didn't get upset. I didn't get upset by looking at the name of the individual. I became triggered by the words that was used by the individual. And so in that moment, I recognized the trigger and I said, wow, that's a trigger. A feeling, a thought, and even something environmental can be a trigger. So in that moment, I recognized what was my trigger. The trigger was something from the past. It was a thought and it was a feeling. And immediately I told myself, no, I am not that person I was 10 years ago. I am not that person I was 20 years ago. So how do you deal with a trigger? Pray about it. Acknowledge what it is. Be honest about it. And lastly, you don't have to respond. No, you don't have to respond to it. Just because you feel something or think something, or if you see something that may bother you or even trigger you, you don't have to respond to it. You can simply call it what it is, acknowledge it for what it is, but you don't have to respond to it. You don't have to become what that trigger wants you to become in that moment. That's right. I'm telling you this because this is what I told myself. So there are many things in my life personally I have gone through, and thoughts come to mind sometimes of things that I've gone through. And I always tell myself, I'm in a different place. I'm a different woman. God is with me. I'm healing. I have healed from many things, and I'm better. That's how I talk to myself. We have to stay on a path of consistently, progressively healing. Yes, we have to stay on a path consistently and progressively healing. Because when you choose to stay on that path, you help yourself and you help others that love you. You don't want to become a liability to anyone. You want to be an asset. So staying on the healing path is just better. It's better not to go backwards. So if something reminds you of your past, you don't have to go backwards. If someone comes and says something to you about your past, or they do something to remind you of your past, or they even doubt the fact that you haven't changed, you don't have to respond to that. People are going to think what they want, whether you're doing good or bad. And in the moment when you know someone is reminding you of your past with the wrong intent, just ignore it. But most importantly, recognize what is happening. Recognize your triggers. When you recognize your triggers, you get to learn about yourself. You get to learn about the moment you are in concerning who you are and what you should and should not respond to. Because mental triggers, emotional triggers, and environmental triggers are very, very real. They're real. And it's not something you can just run away from and not act like it's not happening. No, you have to acknowledge it for what it is. Because when you acknowledge it for what it is, then you have an opportunity to learn about you. Yes, be in the moment of what is good. And when you recognize what is not good, just see it for what it is. I always say hit it and quit it and move on. And what do I mean by that? I'm talking about recognizing something for what it is and then make a decision to move forward. Every day you live, you have an opportunity to move forward. You do not have to live according to your past. You don't have to live according to the pain you experience. You don't have to live according to bad relationships and childhood memories. You don't have to live according to that. Because the minute you start living according to that, based upon what you think and your conversation, that means that's a setback. You don't want a setback in that area of your life. You want to stay on the healing path. Sometimes people sit and have conversations about their past and they stir up all the bad feelings and all the bad emotions and all the bad thoughts all over again. And it gets so bad, you would think that their thoughts and their emotions get so bad, you would think that the incident just happened. So you have to be careful with your conversations with concerning your past. If you express yourself or vent about something that happened to you, Speak from a place of power. Speak from a place of what you learn from the experience, but don't speak like a victim, because you are not a victim. Whatever happened in your past, that must stay in your past. The way to stay on the path of healing is to speak life over yourself, to project something better and something new every day. Because you are choosing to change, you are choosing to evolve, you are choosing to grow. So you should and you must project something new and better every day. I am going to read that inspirational quote again. Leave the past behind and don't look back. Your focus on your present and future is more beneficial. Don't let the past trigger you. Focus on what is good. I always say focus on what is good at the beginning of the episode, because I want to remind you about the power of thoughts. Wherever you put your energy, that's where your thoughts will be. And it is always better to put your thoughts, your energy into what is good and what is positive, because when you put your thoughts and your energy into what is good and what is positive, then you feel better. If you are sitting around thinking about negative things, and if you are sitting around thinking about things that are not good for you, and if you are sitting around thinking about what people did to you and how they hurt you, the past is the past. Yes, you can acknowledge something for what it is, but what I'm saying is this: do not sit and rehearse the past in your feelings and in your thoughts. Because rehearsing the past in your thoughts and in your feelings is just going to circle back around in your life. When it comes to everything that happened in the past, that mess will circle back around and you will feel like you are right back in that moment again. So you don't want to stir up that energy. You don't want that. When you think about your past, anything that hurt you, anything that bothered you, anything that wasn't good for you, think about it as a reference of a lesson. Think about it as a reference of knowledge, a reference of wisdom. But don't think about it as a reference of, oh, they did this to me. This is what they did. Because when you constantly think about what's been done to you in that order, then what happens is the focus becomes a victimization mindset. Yes, it becomes a mindset of victimization. And you don't want a mindset of victimization. You want a mindset of conquering. Conquering what? Conquering situations and circumstances in your life, even when it comes to past hurts and pains. So, leave the past behind and remember, mental triggers, emotional triggers, and environmental triggers, they have to be dealt with. Whenever something comes up in your life and you know it reminds you of your past, deal with it, acknowledge it, and move on. But most importantly, be honest. Be honest about it. Be honest about it so that you can continue to move past it. Move past it mentally, spiritually, psychologically. Yes, you want to move past it. You don't want to get stuck. You don't want to be in a position where you are rehearsing what happened to you. Some people sit around and think about their past so much. You can talk to them over the phone or visit with them, and you say, well, what's wrong? And they might say, oh, I was just thinking about what happened to me 10 years ago. They did this to me, and this is what they did. Well, how many times are you going to talk about it? That's the question I would ask the person. How many times are you going to talk about it? We know what happened. We know what they did. But how many times are you going to keep talking about it? It's not even worth talking about it, because once you have acknowledged what happened to you, and once you have gotten to a place to resolve in your spirit what has happened to you, now it's time to move past it. Yes. So leave the past behind. Oh, and on that note, I am going to conclude this episode of SB Favorite Thinking Podcast. I thank you so much for tuning in and taking the time to support the podcast, and those that leave me good feedback on social media. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please share this podcast with others. And as I stated earlier, if you would like to give to the podcast, you can give at Cash App $SB Favor, or you can give at Venmo at SB Favor. And if you don't want to give through those apps, you can reach out to me at sbfavor@yahoo.com via email to contact me, and I will give you information on how you can give. I appreciate you so much. If you also would like to reach out to me on social media, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And I also have a YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to me wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm on iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Audible. Google me and you will find me. And once again, share this podcast with others. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Yes, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click like. And like I said, share this podcast with others. I thank you so much for listening. You have a good day.